must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us today. This is Kenya and Africa at a glance. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and it is a pleasure to have you on board. And on the show, I get to bring you the latest news by getting to look at the headlines across Kenya and indeed some from other African countries. And then I'll bring in my panelists. And so let's just start with the Star newspaper, and the main headline on the Star newspaper: Musalia Raila in bitter war over Uhuru support. ANC leader claims that the government is bankrolling the Azimio la Umoja campaigns. The story is on page 4 and 5 on the Star newspaper. Lamu midwife dodges bullets to deliver babies in Boni village. You'll find that on page 11, and the main pictorial on the front page of the Star newspaper: Mudavadi chews juicy melon in city market campaign. That is on page, that is the main headline, the main pictorial there. We know that that union, or that alliance rather, yesterday they were campaigning in areas in Nairobi yesterday. And bizarre killings, mystery of 25 Yala River bodies entwined in Luo traditions. The story is on page 8 and 9 of the Star newspaper. We turn our attention to the Standard newspaper, and the main headline: how election year billions were shared. Uhuru's government to spend additional 126 billion Kenya shillings to prepare for polls, fight drought, and buy COVID vaccine in a supplementary budget that also pumps in cash to ailing parastatals. And I've seen the Standard has outlined how that money will be spent. IEBC will get 8.8 billion Kenya shillings. Ministry of Defense for election security will get 15.1 billion Kenya shillings. Ministry of Health for COVID-19 vaccines will get 14.9 billion Kenya shillings. Department of Infrastructure will get 7.3 billion Kenya shillings. And Kenya Airways will get 26.6 billion Kenya shillings. And Stabilization Fund will get 24.7 billion Kenya shillings. And State Department of University Education will get 8.5 billion Kenya shillings. And Teacher Service Commission, 6.9 billion Kenya shillings. Crop Department Drought, that will get 5.3 billion Kenya shillings. So that will total up to 126.3 billion Kenya shillings. And then there's a story there just beside that: internal rivalry threatened to shatter Ruto's new alliance. And I think a lot of us have seen how that played out yesterday. The story is on page 9, and we shall look at that. And CBC to multiply choice questions in grades 3 and 5 test, that is on page 4, where most new voters are as IEBC fails to hit target. And obviously we shall look at the story on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. And then we turn our attention to the Daily Nation. Inside the 1 billion Kenya shillings NSSF gravy train, how Kibaki reform sparked of massive theft at Fund. That is on page 12. MPs close ranks to save their jobs house business team. Motion passed in record time. That is on page 6. And the main headline on the Daily Nation is KQ and IEBC win big in 130 billion Kenya shillings budget. And I've just read you the breakdown there, the Standard had given. And then Ruto goes for NASA's 2017 strategy to beat Azimio. That is on page 4. And Magoa 6 AG's advice on role of 2 agencies in verifying qualifications, and CS asks or advice on the role of the Kenya National Qualification Authority, KNQA, in verifying academic certificates issued by local and foreign institutions. That is on page 8 of the Daily Nation. And then Jumwa seeks to move case to magistrate. Malindi Member of Parliament Aisha Jumwa, who is facing murder charges for the killing of ODM supporter, wants to exhaust all appeal channels, and you'll find that on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Getranco MD's resignation raises eyebrows. Fernandez Barraza's decision to quit a day before he was to face the House team for questioning over 785 million Kenya shillings excess payment to Power Fund puzzles MPs, and that is on the back page of the Daily Nation. So that is what we have on the local newspapers. Let me see if I could get us some news from other African countries this morning as we wait for our panelists to join in. All right, so we do have some news from some headlines from, we'll start with Zimbabwe and Zim on verge of de-dollarization. You know, I think they've been attempting to introduce their own currency. We know Zimbabwe's currency has been, they've been using, you know, foreign currencies. And so they've been trying to even introduce, I think was it last year, they introduced another currency that has not been working. So now it is on the verge of going back to using the US dollar, which it has been using anyway. And then still in Zimbabwe, Chamisa heads to Matabeleland. That is on the Daily News, and it is on the main headline. A new dawn as investors seal deal on crude oil pipeline. That is on the front page of Citizen newspaper from Tanzania, and the Daily News, still from Tanzania. Tulia pledges efficiency, and the new progress in East Africa crude oil pipeline project. That is what we have there. And the Daily Monitor from Uganda, how Ugandans will reap from oil deal. That is the main headline. And the new vision still from Uganda. Government, I guess 40% oil deals for Ugandans, 34 trillion Ugandan shillings oil pipeline project launched. And then I'm looking for the punch from Nigeria. Marketers labor won as federal government pushes refineries repairs to Buhari's success. Very well, no subsidy removal until refineries are working under next government. And without repairing refineries, fuel price hike imminent. Say marketers fault these policies. So what I'm hearing from this story is President Buhari has just decided to transfer the problem that is supposed to be sorting right now urgently to the next government. We know Nigeria is going to its elections next year. You know, and Buhari is serving his second and last term. They usually have a 4-year one term, so he's serving his 8th year, the last, you know, for his last term. And so that is it. So he's saying this is something that he doesn't want to deal with. So that has been pushed to the next government. And the Guardian, still from Nigeria, El Rufai seeks help as bandits kill 1,192, kidnap 3,348 in Kaduna. This is the governor of Kaduna. And if you know, if you've been following anything from Nigeria, that you will know he's one of the people who have been even suggesting policies that support and aid this banditry and these extremist activities in that part. So I guess now he's overwhelmed and now he's seeking for help. You know, they refuse to put policies in place that will help in fighting you know, extremism in Nigeria. So now they have to deal with that. Very well. Thank you so much. We are joined this morning by Daniel Wesonga, our correspondent and in-house analyst from Nairobi. Wesonga, very good morning to you.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Miriam Ogutu in Nairobi. Good morning to our viewers here in Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa, Africa, and the rest of the globe who are joining us this morning. It is indeed my pleasure to be on the panel. All
right, so I've gone through the headlines, and before we get into the politics, because you know now politics is inevitable. We are in our electioneering year. We've been, I think, the politicians made us be in an election mood since the last elections we had. They've not given us a break yet. So, but anyway, we're having our elections this year. So politics is just on the front pages. But I want for us to just look at other things first before we get into, and a lot of them are politically, you know, they have a political undertone in it. But I'd like for us to look at that before we look at delve into politics. So we're going to the Standard newspaper on page 12 of the Standard newspaper. And elections agencies threaten to lock out leaders over hate speech. as some politicians may be denied the chance to contest in the August 9th polls over hate speech. The National Cohesion and Integrated Commission, NCIC, working closely with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, they said it will not clear those involved in hate and incitement speeches in the run-up to the elections. The agencies disclosed that they are currently working on close to 20 cases involving top politicians. NCIC will recommend to the Anti-Corruption Commission not to issue integrity certificates to some senior politicians who have failed to abide by values of cohesion, said the Commission's Vice Chairperson, Wambui Nyotu. All right, so they're working on 20 individuals who are likely, according to this story, to be barred from running in the next elections because they have been found with issues of incitement and integrity. The integrity is questionable. I mean, if we were to sit down and just take these politicians one by one, I don't know how many of them will really pass that test. But even as NCIC now, for me, what I hear, Daniel, is a threat. Are they likely to take any actions after that, really, to bar these politicians from running?
Thank you so much, Miriam. And of course, I've listened to my very, very good friend Wambui Nyotu, and of course, her commission also talking about barring these leaders from running for office in the forthcoming elections. And it's something that I'll really be keen to see happening, because in the past days, this has been all talk and nothing to show for it at all. You remember the days we had Francis Olekaro as the chairman of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, where now my good friend Wambui Nyotu sits as the vice chair, and Reverend Kobia as the chairperson. You know, these are very, very domicile commission. It's a toothless dog that has been barking but no bites at all. And also the IEBC has not been doing anything in regards to hate speech. Neither has been the Kenya, the Anti-Corruption Commission, which has been promising Kenyans that leaders who have been implicated in corruption scandals are actually at the running the risk of being blocked from running office. But nothing has been forthcoming from these particular organizations. So to me, I just think that these are the usual theatrics. You know, we are 6 months to the elections, and therefore they might want to maybe just show a scenario to Kenyans where maybe to purport perhaps that they are working for the people of Kenya. But all in all, Miriam, I believe these are not really issues that they're going to handle, but they are just simple theatrics and threats that they are making to show for whatever wasted time that they've been having into office. I don't have anything against the Kenya National Cohesion and Integration Commission. I don't have anything against the Anti-Corruption Commission. I don't have anything neither against any other commission such as the IEBC. But the fact is, these commissions have been letting down Kenyans. They have been talking tough, but little comes out of them when it comes to actions. So to me, I think I'll be a fool to actually believe that this is going to happen. Unless I see it with my own eyes, Miriam, I don't think it's going to happen here in Kenya.
All right. And of course, she continues to say, of course, she dismissed claims that the commission was a toothless bulldog and warned that all hate and incitement cases would be speeded up. Nyotu said Chief Justice Martha Koome had set aside 4 courts to deal with incitement cases, noting that this would deter incitement that has been the norm in past elections. She's denying that that's what we know. That is the public perception that this institution is toothless, but she's saying no.
Exactly, Miriam. And of course, that is what every Kenyan knows of the Kenya National Cohesion and Integration Commission, as well as the IEBC and the EACC. You know, let me ask you, perhaps if I was in that conversation, I would have asked her to name any court cases where someone has been prosecuted for hate speech and the case has been able to go all the way to the finals, to the ruling stage, and this person has actually been convicted of hate speech. Do we even have any politician who is spending time in jail right now because they have been convicted of hate speech? Zero. Do we have any politician who has been taken to court on corruption charges and spent some time in jail? the other magistrate in the lower court, Magistrate Juma, actually tried. They put Waluke, Wahungu, and the co-accused behind bars for some months. That was actually a very, very commendable job. But what about the rest of the judiciary? We have only been seeing theatrics from them, tough talk and little action. So to me, I believe Commissioner Wambui Nyutu is actually just singing a song that she found already composed in the in whatever agency that she's working in, and therefore she has no control of whatever happens. Politicians have actually overpowered these agencies, in that they can always bribe the courts, they can always even bribe the commissioners in some of these commissions, and actually walk away with impunity without their cases being prosecuted to finality. So to me, I believe, unless she proves us otherwise, I believe this is not going to happen, only owing to the fact that we are only 6 months to the general election. So until I see action from Wambui Nyutu's commission, I'm not going to stand with her and say, oh, this is a good friend of mine, or maybe she's a youngster, and therefore we are more likely to see maybe a dynamic shift from maybe Kaparo's point of view to Wambui Nyutu's point of view in regards to hate speech and all that. So I don't think it's going to happen, Miriam, all in all.
Okay. And speaking of hate speech, I watched a video yesterday on Twitter that really disturbed me, and I see the story is on page 12. Let me just read it, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, Daniel. A member of the East African Legislative Assembly, EALA, is being sorted in connection with incitement to violence remarks she is accused of making during a meeting at Mochongoi in Baringo. Baringo County Commissioner Abdisak Jaldesa said Florence Jemetai had refused to honor summons by the County Security Committee. Ms. Jaldesa said 2 other local politicians had recorded statements over remarks they made at the meeting that was attended by Governor Stanley Kiptis, 3 MPs and a cabinet secretary on Sunday. She went underground after we summoned her to appear before the committee. We have sufficient evidence to charge her with incitement to violence, Jaldesa said after the security team interrogated Baringo South parliamentary aspirant Joseph Tarus and Philomena Kibet alias Massam, who has declared interest in the Kabartonjo civic seat. Yesterday, the 2 politicians spent the better part of the day at the county headquarters. They were later directed to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to record statements. And I can't repeat whatever it is that she was saying, because it's against the journalism laws in this country. You can't repeat something that in nature was even if somebody said it and it's deemed to be insightful, we cannot repeat it. But I heard it. I don't know if you came across that video on Twitter where she was asking residents to perhaps take up arms and asking for them to be given bullets and stuff to protect themselves.
It is very unfortunate that Honorable Florence Jemetai had to go to all those extremes and be able to lobby residents of Baringo to arm themselves. And even actually, it's not the residents of Baringo to arm themselves, but whatever she said, she wants to set up a pay bill number so that the community contributes and they are able to buy guns for every household, in that they'll be able to cater for their own security. Why is she trying to introduce a state within a state? As per the law, only those security officers or maybe licensed firearm holders are the only ones who are allowed to hold firearms. Apart from that, we also have the National Police Reservists, NPRs, who are supposed to legally own the guns. So if you're calling your people to go and buy guns so that they can be able to protect themselves, that is how militia groups are actually formed, And the bad thing is that he was actually telling these people avenues whereby they can be able to simply get these guns. She was telling them that if you own a motorbike, it means simply that you can also be able to own a gun. How does she know the modalities of owning a gun? How does she know the channels through which they can be able to dubiously get a gun across the border? Of course, we know these guns always come from either South Sudan or Uganda through the Karamojong. So to me, I believe that was a very, very big incitement statement, because that is what happened some years back in West Pokot. That is what was happening in Turkana and also part of Baringo. Those bandits that own those guns were people who were previously just doing their farming, keeping their livestock, doing their pastoral duties. But someone came to them with an idea that, look, if you have 5 cows, perhaps you could move them to Uganda or maybe to South Sudan, and you could actually exchange them with a gun, and you could use that gun to go and raid your neighbors and steal cattle or defend yourself with it, in as much as it is illegal. And now we have today Honorable Florence Jematia telling the people of Baringo that with the motorbike that you have, you could either sell it and with the same amount of money or the same value, be able to acquire a gun, or you could actually go and exchange your motorbike and get a gun. Let me tell you, Miriam, that is an eye-opener for bandits. That's an eye-opener for thugs in Baringo. You know, they are not going to only be dealing with now armed bandits or maybe armed households who are looking forward to protect themselves against the bandit attacks. They are going to be looking to be tackling even thugs who are going to be stealing from their own community, you know, because they realize if I have a motorbike and a motorbike is giving me a profit of 300 per day, you know, doing that, which means maybe I have something like 9,000 Kenyan shillings in a month. Why can't I go and exchange this motorbike and be able to get a gun, which I can go and rob people and get even maybe 20,000 or 100,000 in a day? So that is a real problem that she was actually spewing to her people, instead of solving the particular problem that was there. You know, in that particular meeting, I understand the heads of security, the provincial administration, and the leaders from the office of the president were there. She would have sought other alternative methods of conflict resolution. She would have gone even to Harambee House in Nairobi and meet the CS of Interior, because she's a member of parliament, Miriam. She is not just any other local leader who does not have the contacts to the national government and of course the Ministry of Interior. She's a person who is very, very close to the deputy president, who is #2 in this country. So I believe, and who actually sits in the National Security Council. So I believe Honorable Florence Jematia is a disgrace to this country, and I don't know why she's still holding that position at Yala. She should be forced, actually, Miriam, to resign as soon as possible, so that we have a person of integrity, a person who really values the peace and the tranquility that we have in Kenya right now. You know, it is not only about the peace of Kenya outside its borders. It is also from within, you know. That position that she's holding right now is awarded in tandem or in the highest regard to the integrity and also the patriotism that one has towards their country. So that is why they're actually selected to go and represent the country in the East African Legislative Assembly. So without that, she could not be a Nyala MP. But today, she's a person who is being faced by integrity issues because she has incited her people to buy guns and be able to fight bandits, or even be able to fight the same security forces that protect them. So that tells you that this is a person who is not patriotic about her own country. And the least we can do actually is to get her resignation and let someone who is very, very focused, someone who is a leader who knows how to solve problems amicably, to sit in her place, because she is embarrassing us. What will come out of it if people from Tanzania, if people from Uganda, from people from other East African countries who sit with her in Yala see that clip circulating, you know? It is an embarrassment to our country, Miriam. It is an embarrassment to the president and the party that selected her to join Yala. You know, we should not be having such people representing us in international affairs. She should be some cattle chair lady somewhere there where she can champion for banditry and all impunity without maybe worrying that her position or maybe her status in the society will actually be jeopardizing her stature. But because of what we have in Kenya today, you'll see some leaders from Rift Valley actually coming to her protection. And if today she'll be arrested, you'll actually see leaders like Kipchumba Murkomen or many other UDA affiliated leaders actually accosting her to the courts. So to me, I think we don't have a country. We don't have patriotism. We don't have the social contract that Dr. Matsanga talks about. Jematia should be condemned in the strongest terms possible, Miriam. I submit.
All right, and of course you've mentioned a couple of things as she was saying in that video. Of course, challenging even the Boda people. Like you own a a motorbike. That means you can afford a gun. And I wondered, how does she even know the prices? How accessible are these guns? Is she giving people ideas and how to equip themselves? Because by the time she's saying that, perhaps she does have an idea on how to acquire those guns, how much those guns cost. But that aside, we know the issue of insecurity in Baringo now has gone on for a very long time. And when I was watching her speak, I could see a lot of, I'm not, whatever she was saying is wrong, period. It's insightful, period. And of course, the agency are on it. But I also saw somebody who's very frustrated and they feel like, do we have to protect ourselves because they feel perhaps the government is not doing enough? Do you think the government is doing enough in terms of addressing the issue of insecurity in Baringo County, in Laikipia County, and these other places that have been restive now for a while?
Miriam, the government is doing the best it could in terms of responding to security concerns in those particular regions. We have seen for so many times the former RC, George Natembeya, visiting those particular areas. We've seen the CS of Interior, Fred Machangi, together with his PS, Dr. Karanja Kibicho, going to those particular areas to just address the security concerns of the people. And let me tell you, Miriam, some of these problems are local problems and cultural problems. You know, if you do not sit down with the people themselves, if you do not address certain matters in regards to their culture, then even our police officers will not be able to solve this particular problem, even for an eternity. You know, we will keep on sending our men in uniform in Baragoi to be butchered like they were some years back. You'll keep sending them to Baringo. Some of them are killed in those banditry attacks. You'll keep on sending them to Laikipia and Samburu, and only for them to be killed by these bandits. So it is upon the community itself, through the community leaders, to sit down and be able to talk about these particular menace that has been going on for decades and be able to solve it. You know, they should be educated that, you know, stealing a cow from your neighbors and going to sell it at a throwaway price in Samburu or in Marsabit or any other northern frontier counties does not actually solve the problem, does not actually get you out of poverty and elevate your situation. Whatever leaders should do is civic education about this retrogressive culture. And also, civic education will be inconclusive if you only teach them about how to come out of this retrogressive culture without giving them an alternative way of earning an income. Remember, those who engage in banditry attacks, actually, from earlier on, they could do it as a cultural event. But right now, we understand that they do it as their source of income, as a means of earning money from it. So if we do not give these people an alternative income, then they are gonna have to go back into backslide back into the bad culture of engaging in banditry attacks and raids. And of course, yesterday she mentioned, she talked about the border riders and all that. And whatever Miriam, she could not tell people is that actually the border riders have actually, the border industry itself has come as something of relief to those particular areas, Baringo, West Pokot, Turkana, and even Samburu, because young men who initially were involved in banditry and all those kinds of retrogressive cultures actually found a new venture in riding border and earning their daily income, you know. Now, without maybe having to go to with a border, you realize that the money they will have gotten by raiding other communities and the risk that is actually there, they find it easy to actually own a border and be able to do business on their own. Now, why can these leaders also now think outside the box and be able to get another avenue for income generation for these young people besides the border business? But if you talk about that, I think leaders in that particular region have also failed their people. So to me, Miriam, I believe it is the leadership that ought to be serious about addressing the issues of their people, first of all, they have to talk about culture change. They have to talk about bringing incentives, business and incentives that will make sure that these young people actually get some other alternative sources of income. And thirdly, they'll be able to talk about peace in the region. You realize that since Pokot County, devolution hit Pokot County, we've had very, very few cases of banditry emanating from West Pokot, even in Turkana County, because the county governments are able to bring up initiatives that actually help employ a majority of these young people. They're actually able to emphasize on education, because you realize that most of the bandits are people who either never stepped in the schools, our school system, or there are people who stepped in school but never completed the education. So if we can be able to tackle this problem from that cultural basis by educating them about moving away from retrogressive cultural practices, also about tackling it by introducing alternative sources of income, and last but not least, also making sure that our young people from those regions actually are given a fair chance to get education, and the leaders now on their part can go out there and preach about peace. I believe we shall be able to tackle these particular Mali. But saying that only our security forces can be a solution to this problem, I think we shall be digging ourselves, our heads in the sand like the proverbial ostriches, which do not see the bigger problem, but perhaps run away from it. So to me, I believe 60% or 70% of this problem is with the community and its leaders. Only 40 or 30% rests with the national government and the security forces. So let the people themselves and their leaders solve this particular problem and be able to have it squared out within its borders, and therefore they'll be able to experience peace. Otherwise, expecting solutions come from outside, it will be really, really difficult, Miriam. Because today, if you are sick, then you have to take medicine. Why do you take medicine? Because medicine can get inside you and be able to heal the illness from within. It can never heal you by just seeing it outside without being injected into the body. So it is within that a problem can be able to be solved. But don't let them not sit just aside and expect the solution to come from the national government. Let the leaders and the people themselves sit down and be able to solve that particular problem, Miriam. I submit.
Very well, thank you. And let's move on to March's registration. I know we've been waiting and asking why IEBC has not been updating us on how the registration, the new voters registration has been ongoing. If you're a Kenyan and you're watching and you've not been registered, you're doing a great disservice to your country. And when things go wrong in terms of governance, know that you will not have a right to talk about it. And you know, the people who usually are vocal in criticizing a lot of things that are happening in this country, majority of them are not even registered voters, because that is how you get to choose the people you feel can take care of your affairs and put them, trust them with these positions. But if you fail to do that, you're doing yourself a great disservice. So you still have until the 6th, just a couple of days away, for you to go and get registered. The story on page 10 on the Standard newspaper: the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has registered 548,188 new voters, with only 4 days to the end of the second phase of the exercise. Nairobi leads with 49,746 newly registered voters. The second phase of the registration started on January 24th, and is expected to end on February 6th in the diaspora. The exercise will close on the 15th day from the commencement day, date in the respective counties. And we know that according to the IEBC, during the last 14 days, the Commission managed to register 548,188 new voters out of a target of 2,987,138. Further, the Commission received 130,320 requests for transfer and 989 applicants for change of particulars. Read a press release signed by Chairperson Wafula Chebukati. So far, with just 4 days to go, Daniel, the Commission has only been able to register just slightly over 500,000, and we know they had targeted to register over 4 million. Of course, the voter apathy here is quite apparent.
Absolutely, Miriam, and of course that is way too below the target by the IEBC. But looking at the chairman himself, you could all read mediocrity in this. Wafula Chebukati is not serious, and if Kenyans are serious about the forthcoming elections, then they would be entertaining Wafula Chebukati being at the helm of the leadership of the IEBC. There's no way Wafula Chebukati is going to meet those targets. There's no way Wafula Chebukati is going to guarantee Kenyans a free and fair and credible elections come the August of this year, the 9th of August of this year. So to me, I believe IEBC is the greatest impediment and the biggest obstacle to our democracy here in Kenya. And therefore, if Kenyans are looking forward to IEBC delivering free and fair elections come August, then they will be in for a rude shock. The way Chebukati has been always winning about money, but when it comes to accountability, he's very, very much with few words when it comes to talking about how they are going to get these numbers and hit the target. They also have not been transparent on their preparedness about the forthcoming elections. And as you know, Miriam, we still have a case in court, first of all, in regards to BBI, where the court held that the IEBC did not have the right quorum, rather, to be able to oversee these elections that it has been carrying out since the resignation of the other commissioners who are in the Chebukati Commission. So to me, I believe that is a problem that IEBC is taking lightly, but it might have big implications in its future expeditions. And also, don't forget that the 2017 presidential elections were actually bungled by the same IEBC and Wafula Chebukati. And it is this same ineptitude that is being carried forward to 2022. And to me, I believe the 2017 election results, or the way the IEBC conducted the elections, might come back and haunt Wafula Chebukati. Remember, today, there's still a Kenyan who went in court to be able to compel Wafula Chebukati to comply with the court order that he was given by the Supreme Court judges to be able to open the servers. That has not been done to date. Remember, IEBC was found to be culpable of bungling the 2017 presidential election. And therefore, in as much as the law is concerned, IEBC is a crime scene, This particular matter hasn't been settled. Wafula Chebukati could be taken to court and be made to take responsibility of all these court cases, or maybe these actions of impunity that has bedeviled IEBC. Remember also, apart from that, we had the Chicken Gate scandal, which has not been actually settled. Dust from that particular scandal is actually yet to settle, Miriam. So to me, I believe IEBC, as it is constituted right now, it is not the best commission that we could have for our next general election. Our election preparedness is a mess, Miriam, and I don't believe Kenyans are going to have free, fair, and credible elections. Remember, an election is not a one-day event. It is a process. And the process starts, first of all, with the constitution of IEBC. And secondly, it goes to the preparedness. And thirdly, it goes now to how the IEBC really conducts the process from the voter registration, sensitization, and ultimately how the voters are going to cast their ballots, how the counting is going to be done, and then the transmission of results. If you have to ask me how I rate IEBC regarding to that, I'll give them 2 out of 10. So which means they're still below par, and therefore they cannot be deemed as fit to conduct the next general election. And like Dr. Masango always holds a perspective about the IEBC, I also hold the same perspective that Kenyans are not ready for the elections. If we are going to have Wafula Chebukati as the chairman of IEBC and his team overseeing the August 9th general election, then Kenya is not ready for the elections. We might be as well walking towards the path of chaos and mayhem during that particular period, Miriam. I submit.
Very well. So now let's just get into the politics, and I'll just read 2 stories and I'll get your thoughts on it. and then we'll just move and have the African news because our time is quickly running out. And we start with page 9 on the Standard newspaper. The Amani National Congress ANC and the United Democratic Alliance faced a major unity test at a joint rally in Westlands, Nairobi. Politicians who would ordinarily not shake hands in public and opt for each other's throats if they met in a dark alley found themselves sharing a platform where they were supposed to exchange pleasantries. This is the situation that strange bedfellows have found themselves in as a result of the coming together of Deputy President William Ruto's UDA and Musalia Mudavadi's Amani's National Congress. The 12 Westlands, superintended by Mudavadi and Wetangula, offered a snapshot of what awaits the alliance in other parts of the country. The foes who were supposed to battle it out in the August 9th general election found themselves in the same convoy as ANC, UDA, and Ford Kenya leaders as they drummed up support. And at one point, Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja and former Starehe MP Margaret Wanjiru exchanged harsh words after the former apparently refused to surrender a microphone to his rival to greet the people. The senator and former MP will face off in Nairobi governor's race on ANC and UDA tickets, respectively. And I was watching that video before we get to a bit of Azimio. And I was like, what? This is just perhaps an example of what we are expected to see, because when you see the foundation of this merger or the way their strategy of campaigning, I think it's just faulty from the get-go. We have Musalia Mudavadi, who is saying he's running for the presidency. All right, he's trying to convince us. We know he's not, but he's trying to convince us that he will run as the president of the Republic of Kenya. And also he has joined another very strong candidate who we know for sure is running for the presidency of this country, and that is the Deputy President William Ruto. And these two are campaigning for the same position in different parties, but now they formed a coalition and they want to convince us they're campaigning together and Kenyans are supposed to elect either of them for the presidency. Faulty and just a lot of suckers. So now their supporters are out here and the politicians allied to them, and they think this formula that is faulty is going to work with the rest of these people. Is this not a recipe for ugliness? I know the Kenyan politics is already ugly, so why do you need to make it any more uglier? Why can't they campaign in their different platforms and they compete, fairly, instead of trying to coerce them and put up a show that they're actually working together and it's all nice and roses and peaches there in this UDA ANC confusion?
Miriam, UDA and ANC and Ford Kenya coalition is going to be the axis of chaos and mayhem in the forthcoming elections. And you can see not only here in Nairobi, but also in Bungoma, there are very, very strong concerns from the UDA side that they're not going to cede ground for their UDA and Ford Kenya counterparts. They are willing to go it all the way to the ballot and battle it out with them. So to me, I don't know how they're going to be able to mitigate this kind of impending and latent violence and pressure that is within their aspirants and supporters. And of course, that could be a very, very big recipe for chaos during that particular period. And that could actually precipitate and overflow all the way to the election day. Because, if some of these ugly scenarios are not capped at a very, very convenient and an early time, then we have a tendency that people might carry it all the way to the 9th of August later this year. So these are very, very dangerous signs. And I think our security agencies should jump in and be able to calm the situation. You cannot be talking about how your opponent is violent and is actually disrupting your rallies, but within UDA itself, people actually fighting. Yesterday, it was almost to a fist fight between Margaret Wanjiru and Johnson Sakaja. Quite ugly for a coalition which prides itself in peace and harmony. And but all said and done, Miriam, I believe also it brought out another perspective about UDA. These are people who always talk about kutengeneza serikali na mama mboga na mtu wa mkokoteni na sisi hatupiganii vyeo and all that kind of shenanigans. But yesterday, when you see their leaders almost going to blows just because of a position, a gubernatorial position, it really is an irony, Miriam, because first of all, we've seen in Azimio, people who are vying for the same position actually going to the podium and being able to garner support for their bid. We have seen Dennis Waweru, who wants to be Nairobi governor, on the same podium as Richard Ngatia, who wants to be the same governor of Nairobi, with Timothy Wanyonyi Wangila also going to the same podium and talking and selling the agenda without holding each other's by the neck and snatching microphones from their opponents. So that tells you that we have a group of pretenders in UDA who go around the country telling people that they are not interested in elective position, neither are they interested in forming government with the rich fellas in the society, but they are actually going to form a government of the proletariat and the poor people, the downtrodden in the society, and therefore they are the best bet for the country. But within the UDA leadership circles, we have people who are actually dying just to become elected leaders in this country, starting from its party leader, William Samoei Ruto. And that is why sometimes when I look at Musalia Mudavadi, I think he's either ignorant or just maybe a confused fella, because going to UDA and expecting that William Ruto will cede ground for you so that you become the flag bearer, it's akin to taking a boat to a desert and expecting that it's going to move. It is impossible, Miriam. And what I know from the intelligence circles is that Musalia Mudavadi is William Ruto's plan B. Remember, William Ruto has an impending court case in the ICC, where lawyer Paul Gisheru is actually accused of witness interference in William Ruto and Joshua Rapsang case. So it is for this case that William Ruto thinks perhaps if things become a bit difficult for him in the coming days before elections, if a warrant of arrest is issued against him, then he should have Musalia Mudavadi step forward and become the UDA flag bearer. But all factors held constant, Miriam, I don't believe William Ruto can ever even dream of ceding ground for Musalia Mudavadi. Or have you ever asked yourself, why is it that UDA, no one has ever offered themselves even to challenge William Ruto as the party leader of UDA? We saw that in ODM, where Oparanya and Joho actually fronted themselves to challenge Raila Odinga as the party leaders. And actually they went to the delegates, and Raila Odinga was elected overwhelmingly. So to me, I think these are a cabal of politicians who believe that they are holier than thou, who believe that their ideals actually rest high above any other person's ideals, and therefore whatever they do is actually bound to be taken with sanctity from the voters, and therefore no one could question them, even if they go to extremes as such as what we saw yesterday. So to me, I think it's very shameful. It is very, very it's a big letdown to our political class, in that these leaders are almost fighting before the electorate, and they're not fighting because their ideas actually differ. They are fighting simply because they really want so badly to be able to be elected by these same people, and they're not fighting on the basis of ideas, rather on the basis of emotions. So to me, I think these are hypocrites. The same kind of politics that UDA is very dominant in is actually the politics of chaos, confusion, and mayhem. And that is why right now, when Musalia has joined them, you see how confused he is. You see how Mudama is issuing statements which are contradicting each other. You see the way even Mount Kenya MPs are talking about the new union. So to me, Miriam, what I precipitate and anticipate is that we are going to have a real katogo in UDA, ANC, and Ford Kenya nomination. So if they do not put their act together, then it is going to be a big conflict, Miriam. Wait for them in nominations and you're going to see.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're supposed to be entering an agreement and taking it to the political parties registrar. And I see it's between three parties. It's between UDA, ANC, and Ford Kenya. Surely there has been other parties in UDA who have been there for a mighty long time. I wonder how they're feeling about this. It's like, everybody else have been observed, absorbed in UDA, and only ANC and Ford Kenya have the privilege of still maintaining their identity. And you wonder how much are they bringing to the table? But I want us to leave that conversation as you perhaps look at this other story before we, our time is far gone, but I'd like for us to just look at this one more story, and then I'll read us the African news. And aspirants eyeing elective positions through Azimio la Umoja coalition will have to agree on a single candidate for each elective seat. In Western, the aspirants have up to Monday next week to reach a consensus on who will fly the coalition's flag. This applies to all positions from MCA seat, women representative, MP, senator, and governor. Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya said a special committee will be constituted to oversee the consensus process. Mr. Oparanya, who is also the ODM deputy party leader, has said aspirants from Bungoma, Vihiga, Busia, Bungoma, and Kakamega will meet in Kakamega next week to deliberate the matter to forestall a fallout. ODM leader Raila Odinga had earlier indicated that Azimio would adopt a consensus in nominating candidates. Another headache for Azimio, because we know even with that consensus, there are a few people who will not be happy if somebody else is settled on and not them.
Absolutely, Miriam. And of course, a real democracy never leaves all parties happy or all the parties aggrieved. You know, one has to win, the other side has to lose. But even in losing, it has to be with honor. And of course, for those who win, then they have to be magnanimous enough to take all these other people who did not manage to come to be the first among the equals on board and be able to accommodate them. Now, that said, Miriam, you can clearly see which side is headed for the government and which side is headed to the opposition. Now, look at the scenario that we just discussed about Margaret Wanjiru and Johnson Sakaja. Why would it be that Johnson Sakaja, or either by design, Margaret Wanjiru, so bad wants to become the governor of Nairobi? Does it mean that if one of them never made it to become governor, then they will be out of government? What does it say about the William Ruto presidency? Does it mean that if they were to hold a consensus and agree, you know, say if one becomes governor, another one can be a CS in the government that William Ruto will form? So that actually puts you at a very, very point of a clear perspective of what maybe even these aspirants think about their presidential candidate. Perhaps for only a candidate who thinks that their presidential candidate will not be able to win the presidential vote can be a bit worried if they do not themselves get their personal elective position, you know, because they know if I lose this, then I'm out of government. And that is the perspective perhaps the UDA politicians have been actually driving, you know. You see someone like Governor Mandago, who really supports the Deputy President William Ruto, but he also wants to be the senator of Uasin Gishu County. So really, that really casts some doubts whether he knows something that the rest of the Kenyan people doesn't know. But that is a bit different with Azimio la Umoja aspirants. We've seen so many of them, some from ANC who have come to Azimio, some from Ford Kenya, some from Jubilee, some from ODM. They're all very quite cool. No one is actually having a hardline position that if you do not give me the certificate, perhaps I'm showing signs of crossing to the other side and all that. Why did even Kirinyaga women representative jump ship when she saw that perhaps she could not get the UDA certificate against her arch rival Anne Waiguru, the current governor of Kirinyaga? Perhaps she believes if she misses out to become the Kirinyaga governor, the presidential candidate not winning the presidential election, then she's out in complete cold, Miriam. So when you see parties like Azimio actually going to the consensus, and actually there's no jitters and there's no actually signs of such, or maybe people defecting from Azimio to UDA, then that tells you we have one side which actually confidently believe they are going to form the next government. And therefore, they foresee a scenario where there's a position for everyone, regardless whether you will win the nomination or not. But if you win the nomination, well and good, you're going to have the party's ticket and you're going to get an elected position. But if you do not win the nomination, then you're going to be appointed into government. And that is why the Azimio side is very calm, composed, and actually organized around this. And I believe they're going to have a breakthrough in this particular consensus, save for only a few case scenarios, of course, because politics does not rest on an obsolete equilibrium. So we might have people who are disgruntled and who might want to bolt out, but for a smaller percentage compared to whatever we anticipate to have in UDA. Wait until UDA holds its nominations in Mount Kenya region, then you'll know that we have been sitting on a time bomb by entertaining these fellas. You know, we have people in UDA, elected leaders, who William Ruto have been keeping abreast for a long time. When they brag that they have 190 MPs, these are elected leaders. And these elected leaders, when they go to TV shows and interviews, they say that we are the owners of UDA, we are the founders of UDA. What does that tell the aspirants who are not elected leaders? It tells them that we own UDA, and therefore the UDA certificates actually belong to us. It is either UDA gives us the certificates or we disband this particular party. So if these leaders will not be given the certificate to flag the UDA party, the UDA flag in their respective regions, then there's a high likelihood that they'll actually bolt out of UDA. And also, if these...
We have to bring this to conclusion now, because we are making way for another show. But
yes,
just
so conclude, Miriam. If these unelected leaders are not given the UDA party ticket, then it will be perceived as some kind of favoritism to elected leaders against these unelected leaders. So they will be disgruntled, and they might as well also bolt out. And remember, these leaders also carry some kind of clout and support from the ground. So that is the scenario, Miriam. One side is headed in opposition, another one in government, and that is how it is.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Daniel Wesonga. Of course, it will be a great disservice if I don't bring us at least some African news very quickly from a few countries, and then we will continue with perhaps talking about this in our next show, because it's on diplomatic leaks, and we shall be looking at the coups that have been happening across Africa. As we know, there was another one that was attempted in Guinea-Bissau. So let me just bring us a bit of the details. And we start with Tanzania. The Tanzanian Parliament on Tuesday voted by Uban MP Tulia Ackson Mwanansau as Speaker of the 12th National Assembly. Dr. Ackson garnered 100% votes, beating 8 other candidates in the race to succeed Job Ndugai. And of course, she's the first, I think, woman speaker there, I believe. And then we go to Uganda. And Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed to extend their armies' joint operation against the allied democratic forces in the eastern Congo provinces of Ituri and North Kivu, now into its third month. President Yoweri Museveni assured the people of Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo of total peace in the affected region. And then we move on to Rwanda, and the country is having another go at hosting the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. After the event was postponed twice due to COVID-19 pandemic, the meeting will now be held starting the week of June 20th, 2022. The confirmation of the new dates gives the government and private sector players less than 5 months to prepare for the event and put in place all the products and services that will be needed to host the delegates. And then we go to Guinea-Bissau, where reported coup in the country has left many members of the security forces dead. The president has said. Umaro Sisoko Embalo said the situation was under control, calling it a failed attack against democracy. Gunfire erupted near government building on Tuesday in the capital Bissau, where the president was reportedly attending a cabinet meeting. Soldiers are said to have detained the president and his ministers. An identified heavily armed gunmen attacked the government palace while President Embalo was meeting Prime Minister Nuno Gomes Nabiam inside, according to reports from the ground. And then we go to South Africa, where the South African presidency has received the second of a 3-part report on investigations into corruption during former President Jacob Zuma's tenure. Unlike the first part, which was received live on TV, this was received behind closed doors. The latest volume details a corruption in public logistics company Stranet and the state arms firm Denal. And then we conclude with Mozambique, and the Ministry of Education has said nearly 800 schools were destroyed by last week's tropical as Tom Anna tents are being erected to serve as temporary classrooms for 300,000 students and 4,700 teachers that have been affected. So that is just the latest from the continent of Africa. I know, Daniel, we want to comment on this, but have to end here, and then we will carry our comments to the next show. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for watching us. Please don't go too far, Diplomatic Leaks. We'll be back in a very short while. This has been Good Morning Africa, the latest from Kenya and Africa, at a glance. That's what we've been looking at. My name is Miriam Ogoto. It has been a pleasure. I'll see you in a bit.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.